Good morning, Rabbi Isai. Says the Mishnah. There's an animal who's giving birth, but's having difficulty giving birth. So the owner had a moiridik chap. What if I help out the animal? I chop off the feet of the fetus as they come out. Maybe it'll help. Now, when we talk about a b'char, this is a b'char. The famous pasuk called a b'char asher yivoled. A b'char has a kedusha. It's a special thing. You can't just chop off legs. You can't just throw them to the dog. It has a kedusha. It's a b'char. But this, the first leg that comes out is not a b'char. The Kodesh Merechem, like they say on Rebbe, he's a Kodesh Merechem. What does it mean, Kodesh Merechem? From the moment he was born, came out to the world. It says in the pasuk, Kadosh li kol b'char, Peter kol rechem. It has to be Peter rechem. Today, some of the questions that we're going to ask, and these are from the less bizarre. But what if there's no rechem? What if the rechem falls out? The womb, the walls of the womb. What if it doesn't touch the walls of the womb? It was able to come out without touching. Let's say today, use some sort of device. What do they call it? Some sort of bicep. Not biceps. Forceps. There's a better word for it. Okay, some piece of metal or a plastic bag. You wrap the baby or the animal in a plastic bag before it comes out for whatever reason. Shouldn't get some sort of infection. I don't know what. You wrap it in a plastic bag and it comes out in a plastic bag. Is that so? But that's Peter Rechem. It has to come out through the womb. If it comes out through Yotze Doivin, through cesarean, not Kaddish. What if it comes out foot by foot? So the Mishnah says, Mechatich Aver, as he cuts off a foot and then a leg, Umashlich L'klavim. There's no kedusha yet, so you could toss it to the dogs. Let the dogs eat it. If it had any kedusha whatsoever, it was a b'char. Can't throw a b'char to a dog. What do? Like the next part of the Mishnah, Yatsa Rubai, if most of it came out, and I want to add a word here, came out together in one shot, Harezi cover, you must bury this b'char. V'nifteres min ha'b'chayra. And if this animal gives birth to a firstborn, most of it came out normally, you put it in a grave, and that animal, the next offspring, even though it wasn't viable, didn't live, the next one is not a b'char. First sugya, about a 15-line sugya, is the question of when does the b'char start? Does the b'char start the moment he starts being born, or once most of it came out? And it's a big nafkamina, because what happens if yotza shlish u'machar l'goy, a third of the animal came out? Now, if there's a goy partner, this is what people do today. They have thousands of animals. They don't want to give every firstborn to a kohen, so they get a goy partner. Get a partner, then you don't have to give a b'char. What does this chacham do? He forgot to do it. His wife warned him he should better get a partner guy. He didn't. And then all of a sudden the animal starts giving birth. So he runs and he gets a guy and he makes a partnership. But a third came out already. Is that third that he sold to the guy, is it valid? Because if the b'char starts immediately, once it starts being born, then you can't sell to the guy. It was not a valid mechira. But if it starts at a different time, starts later on, so whatever he sold was good. So we have the machlokes, of course. Yatsa shlish u'machar l'goy. One third came out and he sold to the guy. V'chazav yatsa shlish acher. Then the second third came out, which makes it the majority a roiv birth. Rabbeinu Amar Kadosh, it works. Rabbi Amar in Kadosh, it does not work. The Kadosh means the sale does not work, and therefore the b'char is, if the b'char is Kadosh. Rabbi Amar in Kadosh, the sale worked. And Memela, there's no kedusha. Rabbeinu says it's Kadosh, the sale did not work. Rabbi says the sale did work, and any Kadosh. Rabbeinu Amar Kadosh, Kasav al-Mafreya Kadosh. Rabbeinu says that the sale did not work. Why? Because right away when it started being born, We find out, when 2/3 come out, we find out that retroactively, the first third was also Kaddish. You had no right to sell it at that point to the guy. You can't sell a b'char to a guy. Once it's born, you can't sell it. V'kivin denafak le'rubei, once 2/3 came out, igloi milsam afredemi kar, or 51%, igloi milsam afredemi kar have a Kaddish. Then we find out now, retroactively, that it was completely Kaddish. Umay dezaven le'klum zaven, and whatever he sold was nothing. Rabbi says there's no kedusha. In other words, the sale was valid. From here on out, it is kaddish. Umay dezavin, shapir zavin, whatever he sold is great. When they go according to their own reasoning, they have a very, very similar machlokes, and the Gemara is going to want to understand why did they have to argue twice on the same exact idea and concept. So here comes scratching your head number one. Di'itmar. If an animal 1/3 was born through a C-section, the other 2/3 were born naturally. What in the world? How did it happen? 1/3 came out cesarean, the 2/3 came out natural, and you had to cut one part off. Although some Rishonim say no, they cut from the cesarean all the way to natural. Okay, whatever it is. Ravuna Amar in a Kaddish, Rav Amar Kaddish. Ravuna says there's no kedusha. Why? Because the first 2/3 that came out, one of them was a Yosef Daifen. It was you start from all the way in the beginning. You go retroactive. Ravuna Amar Eina Kadosh. There's no kedusha because we have to cast. Sorry, the one Ravuna says Eina Kadosh. Why? Because we go backwards to where it started, and it started as a Yosef Daifen, as a cesarean. Cesarean is not a b'char, so there's no kedusha. When you say Kadosh, because I don't care about the first third. That we're going to ignore. We're going to do the last 2/3, and that was a natural birth, so it's a good b'char. Just, if you pay attention, and I'm going to show it to you in a second, they're saying the same svara, but it comes at an opposite halacha in both cases, and I'll explain. Ravuna holds that you go lemafrei, start from the beginning of the birth, and the first part was not from the womb; it was from cesarean. Rabbi Amar Kadosh, and Rabbi says there is kedusha. Rabbi Talid Amar Mikan Ola Abba Kadosh. You start from here on out. V'ruba derech rechem nafak, and there's 2/3 that came out naturally. U'tzricha. So let me show you this. Make it very simple. We have two cases. We have the case of selling 1/3 of the animal as it's born to a goy. And we have case number 2 is that 1/3 of the animal came out with a cesarean. Now, if you say the mikan ulahaba, that when you sell to a guy 1/3, okay, it was a great sale, and you start from here on out to the last 2/3, that's the birth. That means we have a kula over here. If we're going to start from here on out and ignore the first part, this animal is not going to be a b'char. If it's not a b'char, it's a kula. It's green. It's good. It's good for the owner. He doesn't have to give away a b'char. Why? Because the first part that came out was sold to a guy. It was a valid sale. If I say it works, the sale works, that makes it a kula. But I'm using the logic of mikanu lahaba. Whatever I did in the beginning works, and that means it's sold to a guy. So in this case, because it's sold to a guy, it turns out to be a kula. But if we use the same exact logic, when there's a cesarean, it comes out of chumrah. Why? Because I'm going to say that whatever came out with the cesarean is nothing. I'm going to focus from here on out. I don't care what I did before. Yeah, I'm doing tshuva today. I was a big Rashi yesterday. Today is from here on out. Because what cares about from today? Today on was a valid birth of a b'char. So it's a real b'char. Using the same logic, all of a sudden I have a b'char. On the first case, using the same logic, I don't have a b'char because I sold to a guy. So one time it's a kula, one time it's a chumrah. So the Gemara says, I would think that perhaps the Man Omer holds only to be machmer. I want to be machmer myself. So I use the logic of Makan al-Haba. But when that logic of Makan al-Haba makes it a kula, makes it green, he's not going to use that logic. So maybe I need both cases. When he sells to a guy, the case on the right. Ravuna uses the other logic. That he says, L'mafreya. It works from the beginning. Why? Mishum dilakula. Because Mikan lahaba, just to explain the words, Mishum dilakula is they have to add a few things in parentheses. Because the logic of Mikano La'aba is a kula. So he's going to use the logic of Chumrah. What's the logic of Chumrah in this case? The Mafreya. But in the second case of Yatza, Shlish Medoifen, which is a third was born in the garage over there, in a Caesarea, that when you use Mikano La'aba, it actually turns into Chumrah, and maybe he will use the logic of Mikano La'aba. And then we just do the reverse, and then we have a new sugya. And if this is the case of Shlish Doifen, like the one on the left, that's why Rabba uses it, because it's a chumrah, it's red. But in the case on the right, where it's green, that logic is green, it's a kula. Maybe he'll agree that you don't use that logic, you use the logic of the mafreya, which makes it a chumrah. Okay. So now, but we learned in our Mishnah, our Mishnah we just read, that what? If an animal is trying to give birth and having a tough time, you cut off every leg as it comes out and you throw it to the dogs. You can pile it up. You don't have to. It's a process. It's going to take him 2 hours. One leg comes out, cut it. You don't have to run to the dog and give it to him. Put it on a pile. When you have a bunch of legs, then you take them all and give it to the dog. But if the Kedusha goes retroactive and works retroactively, you cover him by your leg. How come he doesn't have to bury it like the guy buried the Kaddish Merechem over there? If he has a certain amount and you find out later that this is a Bechar, doesn't a Bechar require burying? If you don't know it's a Bechar, you had one leg, it's not a Bechar, it doesn't have the Kedusha of the Bechar, not that you don't know. It doesn't have the Kedusha of the Bechar, so you give it to the dog. But now that you have a significant amount, and you're using retroactive over here, and retroactively you find out that this was a Bechar, you have to bury it. So Gemara tries to say, we're talking about a case where he never left it, not that no, but this is the pshat. He never had enough that was going to cause a problem, because every time he cut a leg, he gave it to the dog. No, but what if he didn't? What if he didn't give it right away to the dog? He had a pile of legs and feet. So he has to bury it? Of course. He has to bury it. So how come it doesn't say it in the Mishnah? Say a moyerdika case. 2 cases. One case, as I'm cutting, I give to the dog. But if I leave a nice, significant pile, I can't give it to the dog, I have to bury it. The Mishnah doesn't say that. The Mishnah says, and if most of it was born in one shot, then you have to bury it. I have a much better chiddush. The same exact case that you said that you could give to the dogs, that's only if you give it to the dog piece by piece by piece. But if you have a pile of legs, you can't give it to the dog, it's too late. It has dusha now. That pile becomes kaddish retroactively, and you have to bury it. What is it? What? That's literally the words. Why do we jump to a different case? What's the case that the Mishnah says that you have to bury? Like we saw in the video, guy's holding an entire whole cow and he has to bury it. That shouldn't be the case. I have a much better case within our case. In the same case that a person is cutting off limbs, there's a case that you can give it to the dogs, and there's a case you can't give it to the dog. Much bigger chiddush. When could you give it to the dog? When you're giving it piece by piece, piecemeal. But if you pile it up, and then retroactively it becomes kadosh, then you have to bury it. Says the Gemara, it's such a good kasha that Hakinami comment. That's exactly what it says in the Mishnah. It just says it in different words. When are you allowed to give it to the dog when you do it piecemeal, piece by piece? This is what the Mishnah means. But when you pile it up, Rashi says it's tremendous doichak. I don't like it. Some Rishonim saying it's not a doichak. According to Rashi, he says this is too hard to believe that that's what the Mishnah meant. But if you cut it up and you leave it there, that's why it says the next case that, if most of it came out, you have to bury it. Meaning, not that if most of it came out, if you keep the same case of piecemeal, but you didn't give it to the dog, it's piece by piece by piece, and a pile up, then you have to bury it. Alright, Rabbi Isai, here goes a bunch of kashas, gishmaka stuff, really good stuff. This particular one, if we didn't have a chart, it would be hard in the words, but we have a gewaltige chart, it's very, very easy. When you have an entire animal, do we view the animal as the majority, and we don't care about each limb and each organ, or we have to care about organs and limbs? What does that mean? What's the case? So we have basically only two cases. Here's an animal that was born. Here. Boom. It's being born. Boom. Now, take a look over here. 51% of this animal was born. 49% of this animal was not born. Is this animal born or not born halachically? L'chayre, yes. But, if you take a look, its leg is still inside its mother. What's poking out? One tiny piece of the leg on the right side. You see that little leg? It's a miut of the leg. Now, in the Torah, in halacha, you go by the Rav. You go, where's the majority of the front foot? Inside this building, not outside. Nachamol. 51% is outside, 49% is inside. But if I take into account just the front foot, the purple, 90% of it is inside the animal. So shouldn't it draw halachically the hoof back into the animal? And then what's going to happen? Take a look. If you draw halachically the hoof back in, then now all of a sudden you only have 49% that came out. Excuse me. And 51% now. So do we view each aver by itself, or do we view the animal? The little part that's outside here, this part. You see the little tiny part of the hoof that's outside. Do we view it as if it's part of the larger front foot, the right front foot? And therefore what? The right front foot is inside, not outside, and therefore it changes the majority of birth. It's no longer born, so this animal wasn't born yet. Or do we go with the majority of the entire animal? Says that's not a question. When you're talking about an entire being, you're not going to go break down limbs. We're looking at the majority of this animal. 51% is out, like in this picture. I can't start looking, but from the foot, it's only 10% of the foot, which is, no, we're looking at the whole animal in its whole, and in this case, it's 51% out. This animal is considered born. So what is the question? Beautiful, check this out. Let me show it to you about Peh. Here's an animal. Only 50% of the animal was born. 50-50, equal. Now take a look at its foot, its front left foot. 90% is outside, 10% is inside. Now if I use the Rav, it was born. Because now I'm going to move it. I'm going to move the leg. The entire leg comes outside, halachically. Why? Because 90% is already outside. The little part that's inside, let it be as if it was outside. If it's outside, now I have 51%. In the physical world, only 50% of this animal is born. But if I use the halacha of Rav, I can make 51% born. How? By taking the hoof that's stuck inside and bringing it outside halachically. Does that work? Only half the animal is born by using 90% of the front left leg. Rav Aver. And the question is, this little hoof that stayed inside the animal. So do we take that small part that's left inside and pretend that it's outside? Now you have 51% like in this picture. Toshma. You can bring it right. Yotzer Rubai. Harizi cover. It says in the Mishnah, if most of the animal was born in one shot, you bury it. My Rubai. Eli Rubai Mamish. If you tell me that most of the animal came out, what's the chiddush? The entire shas tells us the halachas of Rav. I need that same halacha all over again. How many times have we had in shas that we go by the majority? Can't be that the Mishnah is repeating that halacha. Elalav must be telling us a chiddush. That it's talking exactly about this case. It was 50-50 with the majority of the left front leg. And we considered it a real birth. Loi. It's not this case, rather it's this case. What's the first case? Yeah, this one. You have 51% only with the hoof. And the Gomash from the Leishef can Ruba the Uber the behavior and the Chiddush is, like you said before, that we don't consider most of the leg that's remained inside, this is considered a good birth, a 51% birth. So we're talking about chatzitza now. Torah says, let's go back to the pasuk. Torah says, Peter kol rechem, that an animal, in order to be a bechar, kasli kol bechar, has to come out of the womb. What if it came out in a plastic bag? Kroche b'siv ma'u, you wrapped it in some sort of leaf, the palm leaf. They take out these words, but talisim ma'u, because it's mamish the same exact question. In other words, a plastic bag. We have this today. B'shul yasim ma'u, a natural bag called amniotic sac. So he says, what do you mean? That's how an animal's born, in the sack. No. You took a plastic bag from your cabinet, or you took a sack from another animal. What if a woman who's helping this animal give birth, she used her hands, so her hands create a chatzitza. The animal's not touching the walls of the womb. Taisa says a phenomenal thing here. He says it's not talking about a woman. It's talking about his sister. The animal had a twin sister, and the twin sister wrapped herself around her brother, and the brother came out without touching the walls of the womb because the chatzitza was caused by another animal. So he goes through because he doesn't like Rashi's Pshat. Hey Chidami. So what's going on here? Before this woman touched, there had to be a beginning of a birth. If the head came out first, and the woman didn't touch it, patarti, then that is the birth. We learned yesterday that the birth of a head is a birth. It came out feet first. Says Gemara, here goes the most interesting question in all of Shas. Blatu chulda v'yitziatu ma'u. A weasel or a rat goes into the animal, swallows the fetus completely, and walks right out. So now the fetus never touched, never went through the womb. So what's the question, B'chlal? It gets more interesting. If that's what happened, ha'afikte, so it never was born, you're right, it shouldn't be, it's not considered peter rechem. Oh, so here goes the question. Rabbi say, get ready. Elo balatu v'yitziatu. This chulda, this animal, went in, swallowed the fetus whole, Vichnisatu vikiatu. Then it had charata. Somebody gave him Musar. He says, okay, let me go. Put it right back where I got it. He went out. The animal was outside of the mother, went back into the mother, spit him up in there, and then the mother gave birth. Yotza me'elav ma'u. So Tyson Daf brings this as the most bizarre. He doesn't say the most bizarre. He says, listen, sometimes in Shas you'll see things that don't make any sense, and it's there for you to learn Torah. I want to ask you something, and I didn't see anybody even talk about this. I don't view it like that. I view it as the Gemara asks a question, and 2,000 years later, this is a possibility. Why can't we have a surgery where a doctor opens up the animal, pulls the fetus out, does surgery? They do it all the time now. They do surgery to babies all the time in utero, and they could also do it outside. Cut open, pull it out, fix the spine, push it right back in, and now we have a shayla. And then it was born naturally. Why not? You tell me it's the craziest thing ever. It's not so crazy. This case is not brought down in Shulchan Aruch, but maybe we could apply something from this Gemara to reality. Today's reality, no? I didn't see anybody even talk about it.
This case
no, I'm saying, because they didn't have that day. The point of these cases, the point of all these crazy cases that we have in Shas, my point is, we're giving us G'darim. It's to give us G'darim. Not, in this case, you're right. So he's saying, it never happened in the world, this case, and the next case coming up. Never happened. But perhaps it could apply. Even the next case now I'm thinking, it could apply today. How?
But if you have some Mela, what's the problem? Why shouldn't it be Kodesh Marach?
No, but it was already born. It was born. No? What's the definition of everyone? Maybe this particular animal was born once. 3 days ago it was born. Just because it was born again? Here, let me give you another case, similar. Listen to this. Hidbik shtei rechamim v'yotza mizeh v'nichnas lezeh. Another case that Tosfos brings as a raya that Rabbi Isai. Listen to this. So I don't know if this is okay, but I brought the artist didn't do this. I threw this in because I thought it's mamish tzukipas to this sugya. We had this mamish 3 days ago. This rechem lerechem. If Pasha moved from one womb to the other, so what's the shaila? But Rabbi, pay attention. In this case, there was 100%, not this one. There's 100% birth on the left womb. The Gemara doesn't even ask that. That is a birth. It came out of the womb, but it inserted itself in womb number 2 and then came out. Could it be a b'char for the second animal? The first animal's pasha. It was a birth through a womb. It left the one on the left. What are you looking at me, Mendy? That's what the Gemara says in the Furish. Look at this. Two wombs attached to each other. Didei patar, the first one. Didei patar, his real mother. She's patar. She already gave birth. The lavdidei loy patar, and the one on the right, it's not his mother. Not. Or the lavdidei nami patar. Maybe one animal could patar two different animals. So today, I was just thinking this aloud. Today, you could maybe transfer a pregnancy. You have
surrogate. They take it out.
Yeah.
Dies and puts it in another womb.
I don't know that that's possible. Did that ever happen? But they have a surrogate mother. Today they have the Muslim surrogate. Okay, we don't have this exact case yet, but perhaps we start thinking it's 2026. They do crazy things with medicine. Teiku. Does the animal have to touch the actual womb? What if it widened up and the animal pops out without touching anything? Is it the ear space? And then there's a pet rechem. Or it has to touch the rechem and there isn't. All these are cases that don't ask me. Some of them I don't understand completely or at all. I'm saying it. But we're trying to learn here. What if the actual walls of the womb were cut out? Nekru, they got. Nekru, holesno, what's the shayla? There's not a b'char. There has to be walls of the womb. Elo nekru v'tolei v'tzavari ma'i. So Yoshi did a whole beautiful thing here for this sugya. I'm not going to show you the whole thing yet, because I don't want to ruin it. But let's say these are the walls of the womb, right here, the blue. And it went from this to this. Okay? That's what the Gemara says. V'tolei v'tzavari. The wall, it was wrapped around like a scarf around its neck. Do the blue walls, if they're in their natural place, then they give kedusha to the b'char. Wrapped around the shoulders, nothing. Or perhaps it doesn't give kedusha. The bottom line, there's a wall there. So here, this is what he did it for. If you have this, and check this out, the blue disappears. Now you're touching something that we asked the question. The Reb Zera. Where do we have this thing here? In Sukkah. Where else? Where else? In Klayim. In this Klayim, parts of with the graves and this, fine. But the idea is there that what? The Yotzader parts. Look at this. Part of the wall is missing. And he came out through the part that's missing, but there's walls of the Rechem. They're still there. Or parts, that's Oymin Meruba. Most of the walls are intact. Most. 90% are intact, part not. But here's the opposite case. Parts Meruba Oymin, most of the walls are not intact. They're gone. And where did he come out of? He went out through the part that's still standing. So the Gemara says, I'll tell you, in both of these cases, take a look, there's still walls standing. The walls are standing, here are walls standing, but there's walls. But in this case, where the blue is gone completely, that we never had a shiloh, of course, it's not a b'char. Now, much easier stuff, Daf Ayin Amud Beis, says the Mishnah. We have an animal who's pregnant, and the fetus died. So let's go through this Rabbi side. Let's do it again, real quickly. We got to get clear with this. There's a bilbul. There's something called Shmoyne Shratzim. people were talking to me after Shiur yesterday. After I said the whole thing, they came over to me with questions. New guys. Hopefully, most of us know this, but let's do chazarah. Something goes from minus shrasim to give off tumah. So people get confused. Oh, they give off tumah, so other things don't give off tumah. It's not true. It's the exact opposite. Every animal in the world gives off tumah when they die, including kosher animals. So a dead sheep that wasn't shechted gives off tumah. A dead cow that wasn't shechted gives off tumah. A dead horse, tumah. Dead dog, tumah. Dead cat, tamei. A shechted sheep, a shechted cow don't give off tumah because the shechita works. Dead pig, tamei. Dead horse, tamei. Dead snake, not tamei. Not tamei. Not tamei, not tamei. That's why you got to do Daf Yomi, Rabbi. Why? Because the snake is a sheret. And only the 8 shrotzim are matama, not the 9th and the 10th. That's the thing. Okay. But that's not going to get to us 100%, a little bit. So it says like this, what if you have an animal that's dead, a dead animal is tamei. So the shepherd stuck his hand into the animal's body and touched the dead animal. Tamei or not? No. You know why? Because what if you shech the mother? Are you allowed to eat the dead animal? It was dead. It was dead inside. Are you allowed to eat it? Yeah. Yes, it's still a ben bekua. So memela, if you're allowed to eat it, it's not tamei. And the shepherd stuck his hand in and touched it, and he should be tamei. No, if a shepherd touches a dead fetus, it depends. If the animal is a cow, tar. If the animal is a pig, is a donkey, tamei. My time is the Tanakama. Why does Tanakama hold that if you touch a behema tmeya in euro, the fetus that's dead, you're not tamei? If this dead fetus you're allowed to eat later after you shech the mother, so certainly the shechita should get rid of the nevela part. It's not a nevela. That's very good. If it's a kosher animal that you do shechita, how do you know? Oh, behema. Oh, makro. It says in the same pasuk. I put it in red because that's talking about a behema tmeya. What could you eat? You could eat kosher animals. But the part before that, is talking about the non-kosher animal. So that gives us a hekesh. It's the same pasuk. We can learn one from the other. So I learn one from the other. Now what? You just told me. We said already, we established that a tar animal, if you touch the fetus, you tar. So too, with a non-kosher animal. Why does Reb Eli say that only on a non-kosher animal it's tamei? So he learns from a pasuk. Anybody that walks on its paws, in other words, a non-kosher animal, now what? So if they were live, they're tamei. So too, when they're a dead fetus, they are tamei the nevela. Ask the Gemara, Elama'ata kolut b'mei para. The famous, this guy, or he did better, this guy as a fetus. In other words, his feet are not split. He doesn't have split hooves. He just have those 2 toes, but they're not split. We already established that this guy, this camel-looking animal that doesn't have split hooves, is kosher when it's a fetus. It should be tamei according to what you said. Why? He has paws. He doesn't have split hooves. So he should be also to eat. So the Gemara, when did I say that it's also when he's inside an animal that has 4 feet? But guess what? A cow is actually a 4x4 or 4x8, whatever you want to call it. Every one of its feet is split, so it has 8 legs, not 4. So different. That's why he's mutter. So okay, so I'll roll with that. But the problem is, what about this case? If you have a camel that has a para inside of it, para may gomel. According to what you just told me, it shouldn't be tamei, but it is. It's a non-kosher animal. Yes, it looks like a cow, but it's a non-kosher animal. Because he's walking 8 inside of 4. And you said only a 4x4, not a 8x4. Says Gemara, hoylech v'chol hoylech l'rabbeis para b'mei gomel. A Okay, you're right. You have an extra passage that tells us that this case, that a cow is inside a camel, that is a problem. What if you have two kosher animals, but their feet are no good? In other words, it's a genetic defect. The mother she's not mafresh parasa, so her baby's also not mafresh parasa. So it should be a problem. That's what we had before. Rav Chizda said the Kavachomer that if you're allowed to eat the babies, so certainly there's no tum on the baby. Okay, so you know what? We'll just stop over here. Boy, have a wonderful day.
Merit the schus of spreading Torah throughout the world. Sponsor a shiur today. MDYsponsor.com or sponsor at MDYDaf.com.